We're going to have a look at some expressive outcome, tone, color, and dynamics. So at the start of the year, we did a listening journal involving those three elements. So the expressive outcome is the emotion, feeling, mood, or atmosphere a piece of music creates. The performers and the composer are trying to convey an emotion within a song, and they use the musical elements, tone, color, dynamics, melody, pitch, harmony, all these to create the expressive outcome. So all of our answers should come back to the expressive outcome. The character, feeling, or mood portrayed by musical work is the expressive outcome. Let's just go through what tone color is. Tone color is the quality of sound. It's the difference in sound between my singing voice and your singing voice and somebody else's singing voice. It's the difference between plugging in an acoustic guitar into an amp or plugging an electric guitar into the amp. It's the sound difference between a Stratocaster style guitar versus a Les Paul style guitar. Different amps have different tone colors. Same for the basses. Keyboards like the Juno in G3 has 300 to 500 different sounds, and you can change the sounds using the left-hand side with all the toggles there. And same as the amp, you can use different settings on an amp to change different tone colors. And you should be thinking about this for your songs, of course. Okay, so sound production, reverb, compression, all these other types of things have an effect on the overall sound when we're listening to recorded music. Vocal techniques, instrumental techniques, sound sources like strings, they all have an effect on the tone color. Dynamics is simply the volume or intensity of sound. It is the difference between loud, moderately loud, soft. It's getting louder, getting softer. Crescendo, diminuendo. Some say decrescendo, that's okay. Mixing in sound production. The velocity in a MIDI instrument. What we're going to do today is have a bit of a closer look at some of these elements. So, tone color. We've sort of discussed there what tone color is. There are words that we can use to describe tone color, such as tinny, harsh, mellow, bright, breathy. These are all very good ones. There are some other ones that we'll talk about that are not really tone color words. When we describe tone color, we can talk about individual instruments. The flute is airy and light. The trumpet is nasal and pure. A sentence might be, the opening melody in the flute uses a light, airy tone. The trumpet passage has a nasal, pure timbre. Timbre is a word we can use that means tone color as well. The airy, light tone color of the flute changes in the chorus. The flute ascends to a higher register. Combinations, the bass and the drum combine to reinforce the rhythm and give a robust, warm tone color, for example. The overall sound. The full, complex, unified, complementing, blending, contrasting. So these are all full, complex. These are words you can use to describe a whole sound. So you're describing the whole band essentially, or everything you hear. Tone color influences are register. So is it in the low register, the high register? It's tone color in its, that should say, upper register. Usually it is bright, clearer, or more nasal and more penetrating in the upper register. If you've sung before, you would know the notes down the bottom of your voice that you can't really hit. That is the lower register, and those notes at the top that you can't really hit, they are the high register. And every instrument has these notes that are too low or too high, or very low and very high. And it can be very different depending on the instrument. The bass guitar goes much lower than the ukulele. The ukulele goes much higher than the bass. The guitar is probably in between those two, for example. Technique, pizzicato, which is plucking on the violin. Mutes, vibrato, amplification, pedals, as I said, effects, effect. as they say. The use of distortion on the guitar creates a gravelly, distorted tone, so that we're trying to describe the tone. Instrumental material. Marimba is a wooden sort of xylophone. A vibraphone is like a metallic xylophone. So the marimba's woody, clear timbre contrasts with the ringing metallic tone of the vibraphone. The bassoon's reedy, dark tone colour penetrates the warm, reverberating lower strings. Here is a little acronym to remember. ICE Doctor for tone colour. Identify, classify, explain, describe, register, and roll. So a roll might be, it is a harmonic roll. The guitar is laying down the harmony with its chords. Okay, identify each instrument used in each section. Classify, so using these classifications as basic ones. These ones are a bit more advanced. Membranophone is like a skin. Chordophone is like an instrument that vibrates strings with more than one note. And an aerophone is one that uses air. But brass, woodwind, percussion, string, and electronic, you can probably categorize most instruments using those words. Explaining how the instrument makes a noise, plucked, blown air through, etc. And describe, so describing the sound, that's what we were talking about before. So I've underlined these words. I don't particularly think they are tone color words. Clean, bright, dull, muted definitely are. Register and roll, I sort of spoke about that. Have a read through that. Stop the video and have a read through that if you're not 100% sure. So this is a good little one. I'll talk you through it. So some of these words are about tempo and dynamics and melody, but which ones are tone color words? So mellow, tinny, growling, whispering, aspirate, rumbling, tinkling, muted, brassy, distorted, ringing. They are all tone color words. The others are not. So somber is an expressive outcome. Tired would be an expressive outcome. Excited, expressive outcome. Aspirate is tone color. Did I say that before? I'm not sure. Rumbling probably is as well. I might have missed that one. Quick is kind of rhythm. Driving, rhythm. Accented is more dynamics. Distorted is definitely tone color as well. So spectrums of sound. Warm to reverberant. Nasal, piercing. Now this is just demonstrating you can try and describe a range of sound, a spectrum of sound. Dynamics, so as we've spoke about, is just about the change in the sound of the level of sound, the volume. These are the terminology that we need to be familiar with for describing how loud or soft. These are describing the changes. They describe the changes. Description of sound and expression. Suddenly becoming, gradually becoming, loud interjection, quiet. So these are little things we can put in our answers. Building as more instruments are added. Dying away, sudden and unexpected. So these are describing the change, which we need to be prepared because most often there is a change. Sometimes it's very slight, but it's always there. Dynamics are the volume of sound, and when discussed, we are analysing this volume of sound and the effect it has on the music. Show loud or soft the music, how loud or soft the music is, how the volume changes, where the emphasis is, the impact the volume has on the music. Composers may use terms and markings on their music to express relative volume. Dynamics, so this is a bit of a diagram that we can use to visually see what we are trying to achieve. So we're trying to describe the levels, we're trying to describe the changes and the emphasis of the sound.